And welcome to Global Business. First up, Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the Communist Party of China Central Committee and Chinese President, and his wife, Peng Liyuan, have paid homage to the China DPRK Friendship Tower. They were accompanied by General Secretary of the Workers' Party of Korea and President of the State Affairs of the DPRK, Kim Jong-un, and his wife, Ri Sol-ju.
Xi and Peng arrived at the China DPRK Friendship Tower, located at the foot of Mount Mudanfeng by car, where Kim Jong-un and Ri Sol-ju welcomed them. The DPRK military band played the national anthems of China and the DPRK. The honor guard slowly lifted a flower basket onto a platform. The ribbon on the flower basket read, "The martyrs of the Chinese People's Volunteers will live forever." All the personnel observed a moment of silence in memory of the soldiers. After the moment of silence, Xi and Kim observed the Guard of Honor's formation parade. Accompanied by Kim and Ri, Xi and Peng entered the Friendship Tower's Memorial Hall. Kim introduced the historical materials, photos and oil paintings that depicted the Chinese People's Volunteer Army fighting side by side with the DPRK people and jointly rebuilding their homeland. Xi carefully observed the list of martyrs of the Chinese People's Volunteers and told Kim the stories of the Chinese People's Volunteers who sacrificed their lives. Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un agreed that the years when China and the DPRK fought together in the 1950s are an enduring historical memory for both sides. They also agreed that both sides should jointly maintain the memorial facilities for the martyrs of the Chinese People's Volunteers, carry out distinctive revolutionary tradition education and ideological and moral education for teenagers, carry forward the great spirit of the war to resist U.S. aggression and aid Korea, and carry forward the great traditional friendship between China and the DPRK from generation to generation.
And Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un have visited the Central Cadres Training School of the Workers' Party of Korea in Pyongyang.
Xi Jinping arrived by motorcade, where Kim Jong-un greeted him before the school's landmark, the monument to party founding. Hundreds of faculty members and students lined the pathway in welcome. With representatives presenting bouquets to the Chinese leader. Accompanied by Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping entered a lecture hall where students were taking a class on the DPRK's foreign relations, with a focus on ties with China. The session paused as the two leaders arrived, prompting a standing ovation from the audience. They observed the lesson for several minutes, nodding in approval. After leaving the lecture hall, the two leaders toured the campus on an electric cart, receiving briefings along the way on the school's infrastructure and academic programs. In a wooded area between teaching buildings, Xi and Kim jointly planted a fir tree. The fir tree remains evergreen throughout the year, symbolizing the enduring and ever-renewing friendship between China and the DPRK. Afterwards, the two countries' top leaders witnessed the unveiling of a monument marking the tree planting. It bears the inscription, "The China-DPRK friendship endures forever," in Chinese and Korean. Amid warm applause from delegates and students, Xi and Kim shook hands and posed for photos before the monument.
Xi Jinping and his wife Peng Liyuan have attended a luncheon hosted by Kim Jong-un and his wife Ri Sol-ju in Pyongyang.
Kim Jong-un and his wife visited the Kunsun-san State Guest House, where Xi Jinping and his wife were staying. Amid light drizzle, the two couples took electric cart together to the banquet hall. The top leaders of the two parties and two countries held in-depth exchanges on consolidating and carrying forward the traditional China-DPRK friendship. Xi Jinping thanked Kim Jong-un for the meticulous arrangement made for the visit, saying the trip had deepened their appreciation for the warmth and friendship extended by the party, government, and the people of the DPRK toward those of China. He said they had reached important consensus on developing China-DPRK relations in the new era and conducted a deep exchange of views on maintaining regional and world peace and stability. He said the mutual understanding between the two sides has become deeper and more comprehensive, and the direction for future development has become clearer. Xi Jinping expressed his willingness to work with Kim Jong-un to jointly guide China-DPRK relations toward greater development and inject a new strong impetus into the socialist cause of both nations. Kim Jong-un stated that Xi Jinping's visit was a complete success, sending a positive message to the world about the further strengthening of DPRK-China friendship and cooperation, which has drawn high attention from all sides. He said this visit holds immense significance for the future development of bilateral relations and the region. Kim said the DPRK stands ready to earnestly implement the important consensus reached during this visit, promote tangible new results in bilateral cooperation, and push DPRK-China relations to scale new heights.
Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the Communist Party of China Central Committee and Chinese President, has concluded his state visit to the DPRK and departed from Pyongyang.
Along the route to the airport, people from all walks of life in Pyongyang line the streets, waving the national flags of China and the DPRK, as well as flowers and chanting slogans celebrating the friendship between the two countries. Kim Jong-un, General Secretary of the Workers' Party of Korea and President of State Affairs of the DPRK, and his wife Ri Sol-ju saw off Xi Jinping and his wife Peng Liyuan at the airport and hosted a grand farewell ceremony in their honor. Thousands of residents and young people stood in orderly formation to bid them farewell. Accompanied by Kim, she reviewed the honor guard. She waved to the crowd. He also shook hands with the senior DPRK officials who had come to see him off. Xi and Peng then exchanged warm farewells with Kim and Ri before departing.
Xi Jinping returned to Beijing on Tuesday afternoon after concluding his state visit to the DPRK. And up next here on Global Business. China's foreign goods trade surged over 15% in the first 5 months of this year, thanks to strong demand for AI, green tech, and electronics.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
Well, China's foreign trade maintained solid growth momentum in the first 5 months of this year. Official data show that total goods trade surged some 15.3% year-on-year to nearly 21 trillion yuan, or over $3 trillion US. Breaking it down, exports rose nearly 12% and imports jumped 20.5%. Monthly imports and exports have now exceeded 4 trillion yuan for 3 consecutive months, with trade increasing some 17% for the month of May alone. A strong global demand for AI and green products helped drive an 18.4% rise in exports of mechanical and electronic goods. Trade with other APEC economies accounted for nearly 60% of China's total foreign trade. And earlier, we spoke to Hong Hao, managing partner and CIO of Lotus Asset Management, to get his key takeaways from China's May foreign trade numbers.
Most important takeaway is that, the momentum continued to accelerate going into the month of May. In April, I think the Chinese exports has been growing double digit, and many of us has been thinking that, wow, going into the next month, the growth may not be as high. But, surprisingly, I think this month, once again, we're beating expectation and registering very high double-digit exports growth. And also, people notice that, the high value-added component of the Chinese exports as a percentage of total exports also increasing. I think well over 50% of the Chinese exports now is in the high value-added industries. So I think as a result, we're seeing semiconductor exports and also other electronic equipment exports has been surging. And some of the items, the export growth has been more than double. So I think the momentum is good, and also the composition is well beyond expectation as well. So I think the market is responding to this set of numbers very positively. This afternoon, we're seeing the China export, which is the high-tech board in high-tech index in the Chinese market, is surging more than 3% in the afternoon trade.
And a seminar on port resilience and high-quality development is underway in Yancheng, a coastal city in East China, running from Monday all the way through to Thursday. The event is organized by the International Cooperation Center of the National Development and Reform Commission and has brought together dozens of government officials, port executives, and global experts to strengthen international port collaboration. Now, during the forum, international guests toured Yancheng Port's Smart Operations Center and berths in order to learn about its digital management systems and smart port applications. Experts stressed the need to integrate port, shipping, and trade development under the Silk Road Maritime Initiative. That would be an international logistics and shipping platform that supports connectivity and trade under the Belt and Road Initiative.
去年全年，丝路海运的集装箱
Last year, Silk Road Maritime recorded more than 4,600 container voyages and handled 5.4 million TEUs. The trade value surpassed 100 billion yuan, or about $13.9 billion US, while its e-commerce express shipping routes achieved remarkable growth.
And to China's southern seaside city of Shantou, where a pilot zone for economic and cultural cooperation with overseas Chinese is leveraging the country's inbound data processing policy. Now, by taking advantage of the International Submarine Cable Landing Station and computing power infrastructure, this zone has now completed the closed-loop validation of the entire chain of token exports. Overseas users can now quickly access large language models and computing services deployed in Shantou via a compliant channel. Now, this is in addition to the inbound data processing area, where companies are also deploying large models and computing power in data center facilities. When overseas users initiate a call, the data enters the zone via a compliant link, undergoes large model inference and token consumption within the zone, and then returns to overseas clients through submarine fiber optic cables. The core of this link is to create a relatively closed cross-border service loop. Data comes from overseas, is processed within the zone, and the results are sent back overseas.
在这个区域内
The large models and computing power we deploy in this zone are effectively considered offshore. Therefore, data entry into the data processing zone only supports calls from overseas IPs, and the output results and data also belong overseas. Currently, during the pilot phase, we have successfully achieved the technical integration from offshore data center to token production, overseas calls, and compliant links. The entire pilot path for token export has been opened. Through a compliant channel, models or data can be transmitted to the data center in the inbound data processing zone via this link for token inference and consumption. After consumption is completed, the results return to the client via submarine cable lines, completing the settlement of the entire computing power consumption.
By deploying China's large models in Shantou and allowing overseas users to call them, we are providing large model services overseas using China's computing power and electricity, achieving token export. Using domestic computing power for overseas calls can increase the value of electricity tenfold.
Well, in recent years, home buyers around the world have shown a growing preference for healthy lifestyles and eco-friendly living. Here in China, March 2025 saw the first ever inclusion of quality housing in the government work report, signaling a new focus on homes that are comfortable, that are green and smart. Our correspondent Xu Yi brings us this story from Shanghai.
So it must have looked up one conceptual term, 20-minute park effect. spending roughly 20 minutes in natural settings like parks lifts mood and eases stress. But just imagine, what if we bring the nature and parks indoor? Recently in Shanghai, real estate and architectural design professionals from China and the UK held discussions on green housing and architecture with nature. Charlotte Zhang, the partner from a domestic design studio, shared her unique philosophies with Eastern architectural aesthetics and insights into integrating gardens and nature into residential buildings.
所有的手绘草图，我们都是用彩色铅笔一点点去画的。然后你看绿色跟棕色是最短，因为大家用的其实最多。就是我希望大家都能感受到，就是
We want people to perceive the beauty of nature within our buildings. We often adopt elements such as moss, rocks, and flowing water throughout our designs. Stones carry the meaning behind the Chinese idiom, casting a stone to explore the way. During the design process, we seek to erase the boundaries between interior and exterior spaces, enabling people to communicate and coexist closely with nature. We have undertaken design projects in the US, Canada, Indonesia, and more. By integrating our Eastern aesthetic concepts with local construction materials and cultures, we deliver creative and unique design works.
Also taking part was Amakanta. One UK developer presented its latest high-end residential project, which centers on the concept of easy access to nature in daily life.
This is the Bryanston Hyde Park, which is a brand new super prime development in prime central London in the most amazing location. So we have incorporated many factors to do with wellness, prioritising natural light, maximising the views, really thinking about the amenity, the concierge, the security services within the building to really match the expectations of the ultra-high net worth individuals who are choosing to buy and live in this development.
And in recent years, home buyers across Asia, especially in China, have shown growing demand for quality and eco-friendly housing, injecting strong momentum into the UK property market.
So for many Asian families who are looking to invest in London now, might have noticed in the last 2 years in particular, we're dealing with a much younger audience across the board, but actually particularly with Asian buyers, many of whom are aged between 20 to 40. They're really prioritising things like very personalised services, but also the wellness aspects.
In fact, since 2025, China's real estate market has seen booming demand for fourth-generation homes designed around harmony between people and nature. Amid global climate risks, shifting from traditional housing to eco-smart living has become unavoidable.
I believe the push for quality housing is an evolution of China's real estate sector. China's urban per capita residential floor area has topped 40 square meters, up sharply from 2020. Home buyers now value comfort, health, and smart design. New national residential standards took effect on May 1, 2025, requiring a minimum floor height of 3 meters. The industry has shifted from scale expansion to quality upgrading. Urban development now prioritizes harmony between people and nature, instead of just efficiency. While Western countries shaped modern housing in the past, China is well positioned to chart the future of residential design.
And I think that's the case in China and in the UK. And I think, you know, collaborating together, we can take sort of the certification and the wellness side of things from the UK, combining it with new technologies that we're seeing from different parts of Asia as well to create these really beautiful homes for maximising well-being.
Xu Yi, CGTN, Shanghai.
And in other headlines, we're tracking at this hour, China's Three Gorges Dam is building a new waterway to double the Yangtze River's shipping capacity. A once complete 10,000-ton freighters will now sail directly from the ocean to inland Chongqing. German exports rose 0.9% in April, but industrial production missed expectations. An economist says the weak indicators point to a slight economic contraction in the second quarter. And Indonesia's central bank raised interest rates by 25 basis points as the currency, the rupiah, has hit a record low of more than 18,000 per U.S. dollar. The central bank cited high global volatility and currency stability concerns. The rupiah has now tumbled some 7% this year, making it Asia's worst performing currency. Well, despite being producers of oil and gas, Malaysia and Indonesia are net importers of petroleum and are being hit by the global fuel crisis. Both governments are trying to support their populations by subsidizing petrol, in Malaysia's case, by around $1.8 billion a month. Now, as the world's biggest producers of palm oil, the two countries are also moving to reduce their dependence on imported fuel with palm-based biofuel. Our Ryan Meltzer has more from Kuala Lumpur.
This plant outside Kuala Lumpur takes crude palm oil, refines it, then turns it into biofuel, which is then blended with petroleum-based diesel to be sold at the pumps. Compared to Indonesia, which uses the highest blend of biofuel of any country, Malaysia has been slower to ramp up its use. Indonesia recently increased the ratio of palm biofuel in its biodiesel mix from 40 to 45%, while Malaysia just increased its ratio to 15% and is targeting 30% by 2030.
We produced 20 million tons of palm oil, CPO, last year. So we have about 3 million tons of local demand locally for food sector, oleochemicals, animal feed industries. So we have, huge surplus of 17 million tons of palm oil supply that we can easily tap into.
Using that surplus for biodiesel also helps stabilize palm oil prices, benefiting big producers and smallholders alike, boosting tax revenue and cutting the country's fuel import bill.
Then the government's moved very quickly, actually. They've had these plans in place, they know how to do it. For one reason or another, it hasn't been attractive. Now suddenly, the oil price hike that we've seen at the moment and the explosion in the subsidy bill, that's a real catalyst to make these changes.
There's some debate over turning food products like palm oil, as well as competing oils such as soy or rapeseed, into fuel. But producers say there's abundant supply of palm oil for both purposes. They also note that unlike petroleum, palm oil is a renewable and sustainable fuel source.
I think there's still a lot of potential that what we can do in terms of the industry, biodiesel as a product, to help not just Malaysia, we can also help the Chinas, the Indias and all to achieve energy security, to meet your ESG goals.
Opportunity from crisis for the world's second biggest producer of palm oil. Ryan Meltzer, CGTN, Kuala Lumpur.
And that's going to wrap up this edition of Global Business. I'm Michael Wong here in Beijing. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time.